It's Fucking Rappin', the first sitcom in podcasting. I'm Chris Cooper here with Alex and Flizzo. If you have any questions or disagree with what's been said today, I would love to read it in the comments. Otherwise, I have to assume I'm 100% correct. Now, here's a rap about writing. Chopping up bodies, leave them disgraced. Deface the visage, no, I'm not making a mistake. Fill them with lead, 1, 2, 3, blop, blop, blop. Straight to your head, leave your language for dead. Yeah, I'm back. All right, record and rapping, you must choose one.
Wrecking.
Yeah, I'm going with wrecking. There was a kind of all over
noises
the place.
in there.
Yeah.
I did like the blop blop blop. That makes me think of
Blop, blop,
Hercules
blop.
Mulligan
Hercules, what is that?
from Hamilton.
Hercules is in Hamilton?
Yeah, Hercules Mulligan. When he does his introduction song, he like jumps on and he goes bop bop bop. And I'm Hercules Mulligan. Like,
I haven't seen Hamilton.
Whatever.
Have you, Flizzo?
I've seen Hamilton. I only remember 2 parts. They both involved King George.
I feel like Flizzo would like Hercules. I feel like that is a very Flizzo character.
Because he raps?
No,
I mean, they all rap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
All except for
that's
King
a whole, like,
George doesn't rap? How is that even? It's part of your kingly duties.
I think you would
Is that
enjoy...
not a rap?
Is it? I don't think it's a rap.
I mean, he sings, I guess.
He
like,
sings.
Is that... How have you not watched? It's on Disney Plus. Like,
Me? I have no interest in such a thing. I'm reading Shakespeare. Today we are reading Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. It's a short one that I've got. Caesar says, "Let me have men about me that are fat, sleek-headed men, and such as sleep o' nights. Yon Cassius has a lean and hungry look. He thinks too much. Such men are dangerous." There's always someone that wants to take your spot. If someone is hungry enough, words will not satisfy them. That's why I want to read that. We're going to be talking about war a lot today, and I don't know, war's full of hungry people fighting to get what they want. But some other lines that come from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar are "Beware the Ides of March" and "Et tu, Brute." And you, Brutus?
Yeah, his best buddy portrayed him. Stabbed him in the back.
I think Cassius set him up. That's how it seemed. I haven't read the play, but I just know that line, that the lean and hungry look can't be trusted.
why would Muhammad Ali do such a thing?
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
He goes by Ali now. Or did.
Oh,
When I dropped out of high school, I became content with living in a cardboard box. Then I joined the army, and they had me sleeping in dirt holes that I had to dig. This is a reminder that life can always get worse. And that's what happens during war. So last week, we were saying some actions were justified by being during war. I want to discuss, why are bad things justified by war? And we can talk about what things are justified, and ultimately, what is a just war?
So the justification, like you look at the Geneva Convention, for example, they're like, all right, you can kill people, but you can only do it in these certain terms. So it's kind of like, it's like a fair fight, I guess, essentially. Don't do dirty work. So I would say, if you're in war and you abide by some type of morality, then it aids in like what you can do and what your justifications are. If you're just full on scumbag every like turn, pretending to surrender and then blowing people up, that kind of stuff, then it's like, yeah, you're in this mortal combat against people, but there's no civility with it. So if you abide by some type of moral code, even though you're in the act of killing, it seems like it's, I guess, more honorable, if you will.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, like that kind of code only happens between civil nations, but then also like, right, if someone gets desperate enough, then they'll be like, well, we're done with the code. Also, since we're talking about so many brutal subjects today, I'm going to try and use more clever language we don't end up saying AILL a bunch of times, or I'm going to talk about, I'll probably end up mentioning grape because I'm going to talk about Genghis Khan, and that's his
His
mother.
grapes and pillages.
Yeah.
It's his favorite fruit.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Here it has a lot to do with Canada, but I might be wrong. That's what I gathered from TikTok.
He's saying
well,
because
what
they're
they're saying
weak, they
is
wanted to force everybody else to fight their
No,
way.
that apparently
No, they're
Canada
saying-
would just do whatever they needed to do, and then like the rest of the world was like, that's not. But go for it.
yeah,
Flizzo.
there was a few things where Canada was performing those acts, and they're like, all right, that's not in the honorable section. Please stop.
Well, I was thinking a lot about like Japan during World War II. I mean, the Grape of Nanking, an action so bad that it can't even be mentioned on air, like kamikaze pilots. And I mean, so I was a part of 4th Battalion, 31st Infantry, and historically they were part of the Bataan Death March, which was they were captured by the Japanese and then force marched.
But I feel like the Japanese were just all honor.
Yeah, but is kamikaze against like war rules? I would think that it would fit right in there because you're sacrificing yourself for the greater good in a messed up sense.
Maybe I guess
your greater good.
I guess if you're used to these gentleman rules of fighting, you're not prepared for how to act with that, because it's like you can't even shoot this person down because they're just gonna go down into you. I mean, similar with
their mission.
The unlifing bombers, that it's not, but they weren't fighting an actual war. Do you guys think the Iraq and Afghanistan wars were justified? Just wars?
One was, I would say.
Which one?
That is such a heavy question.
I would say
the episode of heavy questions. If you haven't read all my notes,
I would say the Afghanistan war was initially
justified. But what about Saddam Hussein was a pretty bad person to his people, apparently using chemical weapons on them. I was told, so we visited the soccer stadium and were told that the World Cup team, after they lost, he had them executed there.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Saddam.
On deployment?
We went...
What? No, on vacation to Iraq.
He was vacation there. So the American military went there in 91 during Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm.
And we already knew he was doing all of this stuff. It wasn't a surprise. He was going to invade Kuwait, or he was invading Kuwait. And we rallied the troops, marched down to his front door, and said, knock it off. And then left. It seems weird that they would go back under essentially false pretenses with the weapons of mass destruction when there was other, what everybody's saying is there was other things that you could have gone to war with him for. Why make something up? That's where all those conspiracy theories start fitting together, and you hear about Halliburton and
yeah. I learned recently, Ball Mason, the mason jars, they don't do mason jars anymore. They're into the war machine. So a lot of companies
and stadiums,
big money in
certain
it.
Point, Ford
that's
was
how they
part of
get the
war
money
machine,
for a stadium. An interesting thing about my history. So 9/11, I was like 12, and then I joined the army when I was 17. I thought the Iraq war was because of 9/11. And I feel that sort of mistake in the American minds was intentional.
Yeah. Well, it was like, hey, everybody's hyped up because 9/11. And we were in Afghanistan, and Iraq is like right there. We already had beef with them a decade ago, and they're acting a little shady. So let's go in. And everybody thought it was a great idea. Well, not everybody, but most people thought it was a just good idea.
Because at that time, everybody was
at that time
bloodthirsty, to speak.
I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I was against it," but most people were for that war at the time, just because of how the nation was. and
Well,
how
yeah,
it was presented to the
you
people.
couldn't speak out against it at the time. I mean, we were eating freedom fries
Exactly. Freedom fries.
on some just wars. My justification is that I'm living out God's plan. And Genghis Khan is said to have wiped out the bloodline of the Prophet Muhammad during the Mongol invasion of Khwarezmian Empire. And upon arriving, he said, "You have committed great sins. I know, because I am the punishment of God."
So, how'd they take that?
Um, well, he forced himself upon them and made sure to wipe out the bloodline.
What year did that take place?
See,
AD.
1162.
Oh, all right. I thought it was BC. I don't know.
Well, is that 1162 AD or BC, Chris? You know.
It's AD.
You said AD.
It's AD. So what had happened for him to go there, because he was at the time fighting a war with the Jin dynasty, but he had sent some emissaries to this Khwarezmian Empire and they captured them. So he sent some more guys to say, "Hey, return our guys," and they killed them. So then Genghis Khan, being all about honor and such, is like, "All right, if I got to come down here, you're going to regret it." Because a little backstory about the world he grew up in. So I said about his mother, she was betrothed to a man who had lived on the family farm for several years working, and then he provided a dowry of nice gifts to the family so that he could then take her home to his village. And in the travels, they were ambushed by some raiders, and the woman got off the horse and said, like, "You go ahead, because if they catch both of us, they'll unlife you. But if it's just me, they'll stop, because, they're gonna." A word I thought instead of grape was to use mildew. So they were gonna mildew her. And I use that because it's such a nasty word.
Yeah.
So those warriors that ambushed the mother, that became Genghis Khan's mother. And so at the time when he was born, his name was Temujin. And because Genghis Khan, I think, means something like great leader. The Khan is leader. So Temujin's mom is the second wife of this raider, and he eventually dies in war, and the tribe just abandons the family. But she follows the tribe with his horsehair banner saying, like, "You can't abandon us." And one of the men's like, what are we doing that we would abandon one of our own like this? And what he gets is just a spear through him. And then they steal Temujin's family's animals, basically leaving them to wither away on their own. There is no mercy on the steppe. But so that's the world he grew up in. And, you probably heard the story of the Mongols throwing bodies with diseases into cities that they were sieging.
Yeah.
Do you think Genghis Khan was a good guy or a bad guy? Or have I convinced you to be neutral
what I heard
now?
was he was the wrath of God.
Well, that's what
I
I was
don't
saying.
think anybody who's a
God's
conqueror is a good guy, though. You don't get labeled a conqueror and then are a nice guy.
Whoa. But that's how countries exist.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like,
I'm not saying
Genghis
that.
Khan is responsible for, or his Y chromosome, or the identical Y chromosome is found in like 8% of the Chinese people today, which ends up that Genghis Khan is responsible for 0.5% of the entire world's population.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm saying,
Anyway,
like, if you're labeled a conqueror and you go on a conquest, chances are you're gonna grape and pillage, and you're gonna slice and dice, and it's probably not gonna be a pretty sight.
So I don't know, but
and they called
Alexander was
Alexander the
labeled
Great, yeah.
great.
And he conquered the whole
Yeah,
world.
He was great at slicing and dicing.
I mean,
It's like when they say history is written by the victors. Like, of course he's Alexander the Great, but if he was somebody nobody liked, then I guess like you could be liked and still
the
be
elephant.
you could be liked but still be a bad person. It happens all the time.
I find that it's politicians a lot of the time. It's they win the popularity contest, but they've done some questionable acts to get there.
Yeah, but like I don't think they were wholly bad. Like I can't really speak of Genghis Khan because most of the stuff I heard was pretty gruesome that he did. But like Alexander the Great or somebody like that, where you're retaking lands or you're spreading a message or something like that. It's not necessarily that they're 100% just evil all the time. Like they come with a message, or even like in instances of like the holy wars or something, they believe that they are going in the name of God.
God's
So
punishment.
I wouldn't say that they're wholly bad. I would say that sometimes when they're doing some stuff, it's they go a
Well,
little
I'd say
too
that
far.
the only thing that upset Alexander the Great was that he ran out of land to conquer. Remember, he wept.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'd
he
say
wasn't. He hadn't
for
known that there was more land out there, I guess.
poor guy. I say life's war. America is made strong by people like me that secure an area and build upon it with shared rules. When someone enters that area and attempts to break the rules, there will be an escalation of force. Does that make a bad person then? To say, well, you have broken our land's rules, and now we will do what we will with you.
But I
No,
mean,
I
it's
mean
all
that's
about
community.
perspective.
That's
Mhm.
community in life. It's like, all right, if you come here, this is how this is going to work. We all agreed upon it. That's why we're here. So that's
But
how
there
it should
will still
operate.
always be someone who would disagree and be like, "Well, that's not fair."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
but
like,
in
from
most places,
someone's
or not most
perspective,
places, a lot of places that couldn't change. But someplace like America, that can change.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's like, "Hey, I don't like the way you're treating this certain group," you can rally some more people that think the way you think, and you can get it changed.
yeah. But then, if those people that make it change, are they not now the bad guys from the perspective of the people that they're forcing to change?
Yeah, but it, unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of times it's just majority rules. So you're gonna have what the majority of the community wants is usually what should happen because that's how you have a that's how you have a peaceful, effective community. If everybody agrees on how it should operate, how it should run, and what laws and rules you should have, then it's more peaceful that way. So
Well, yeah,
if
but I still
everybody
feel that
disagrees on
there's.
how things should be run, then it's not gonna work.
And we said history is written by the victors as well. I'm up to Alex's wreck of the week.
So, I mean, this one I guess you'll like more than anything. I know,
Ooh.
like Tuesday, I definitely had a great idea, and I didn't write it down.
I don't
So
like
the
that at
rec
all.
that's so the rec this
30
week is the fact
lashes.
that I am learning that I should notate things or like document. It says because like I totally had a great idea and I was like, oh, that's something I would talk about. Like I spent all week thinking about it and I was like, the only thing I can come up with is being annoyed that I don't write things down.
Well, most
I know that
smartphones have
feeling.
personal assistants attached to them. So why don't you start using that personal assistant on your smartphone to notate
Yeah,
things
well,
for
You can
you?
do voice to text.
because I don't. I mean, there's no rational argument here. I'm not going to be able to get myself out of the hole. But like, I was like, wow, it's. I guess I'm more annoyed that it's like Chris is really right on this situation. That
Well,
if I started documenting things when I thought about them, I wouldn't have to like
I
try
mean,
so hard to remember
do you
them.
think
Or
they gave me this crown for no reason?
You know what helps me is I write something on my hand.
Oh, really?
you carry a pen?
Yeah,
Oh, see, I don't know.
I
I
have one
carry a
right now.
knife. Like I'm not gonna like
Yeah, I carry a knife and a pen.
memento it into my skin.
But you just write something on your hand. Once it doesn't even need to be what that thing is. If you write like an X and a circle on your hand, then you're gonna remember. Oh, I wrote this X and a circle on this hand because I was thinking about getting milk at the store.
I I don't I
It's
feel like I have more ADHD than you do for that to work.
I used to take notes like that or just like say the key words and then it'd be like what does this even mean? So now I write out, and especially with the show, I have to write out the whole sentence. If I'm going, every word I'm going to say, I need to write down.
I just realized that I might be strange. So when I used to take notes in school, I on like the you have the 3-ring binder with the
Margin.
partition and the margin. I used to just write. I used to draw stuff on that while I was listening to the teacher, and I would remember what the teacher was talking about based on what I was drawing. And it wasn't related to. It was like
Oh, that's
geometric
impressive.
shapes.
But yeah, that's very interesting.
I have just tons of or I had a few notebooks that were just that.
So you're just Egyptian and you're just using hieroglyphics
Yeah.
instead of actual words.
Neurodivergent is a hashtag I've been using to describe our show, as well with ADHD. Because the shoe seems to fit. No, the crown seems to fit.
A bit of the
I just
tism.
realized that was a weird thing. I
But so
never really thought about that before.
we had Alex's Wreck of the Week, and now we're trying to start Flizzo's segment, and he liked the idea of This Week in History.
Okay, so my This Week in History comes from the year 1787. That was the year of the first Constitutional Convention that was in Philadelphia. Since we're talking about wars and what's going on during and after, this is after a war. So after the American Revolution, they were like, all right, let's sit down and get a bunch of representatives from the 13 states, except for Rhode Island, because they didn't show up. And let's sit down and grind it out how we're going to run this country. It's just interesting thing in history. It started May 25th and ran till September 17th to 1786.
Oh, wow.
Or 87. And
so there was technically a president before George Washington, but it was before the Continental Congress, so it wasn't technically the United States of America.
Right. And so the Constitutional Convention, George Washington did preside over that. And you had Madison was there and a few others. One of the big things was representation. So they made a few compromises and some weird things on that. So one was the proportional representation in the lower house. So instead of, they were worried about the bigger states getting too much representation, like Virginia versus like Delaware. So they're like, all right, the lower house is going to be based on population, and they'll be the ones that start basically the laws, and then they have to go up to the upper house, and then the upper house will be based on the proportional to the states. And then another compromise they did was, I guess a few northern states were upset that population was being counted, and the southern states, the slave holding states, they didn't want them to have that representation because it was like they considered them part of the population before the Constitutional Congress or Convention. So,
but then the southern states would have had extra power because they had so many.
Right. So then they said, all right, the slave population only counts for 3/5. So the 3/5 compromise. So that was interesting that started this week.
Yeah, that was a good This Week in History. Did you take notes, Alex?
No.
Well, all right, moving on to the Bible then. A comment we got from Grizzy420 on last week's selfishness debate was, distrust ruins the whole world. Someone might take advantage of you, and it causes you to be selfish. Selfishness is not natural. And in today's Bible, we'll discuss how even if someone hurts you, to look past it. I've got Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 45. This is going to be if someone slaps you on the cheek, offer them the other cheek. And the other part of that is, you've heard people say to love your friends and to hate your enemies, but Jesus says to love your enemies. And finally, we'll hear, the rain falls on the just and unjust. But here's the reading, Matthew. Ye have heard that It hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain, meaning two. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor, and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust.
Kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
I mean, love them with kindness.
Yeah. I think that's probably also a derivative with the keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
But be nice to your enemies. And just, well, there's this big thing I was getting on of, if they're committing all these atrocities, you don't commit the atrocities as well. I mean, the eye for the eye makes the whole world blind. So you have to accept it.
Yeah.
And that's also part
Also,
of God's
be the bigger
plan,
man type
is
deal.
that you'll offer the other cheek and you'll be okay.
I don't
Or you
know.
won't, and that's just part of the plan.
When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on the world.
In a good way, right? You're offering the world your back to stab, as
Their other
Caesar
cheek.
did.
Just not the front cheeks.
Exactly. Strong men need to stand up and make brave statements. I want to say slavery is bad, and I don't condone cannibalism. I was making a joke, and sometimes comedy can cross the line. With Saudi Arabia, India, and China, in terms of numbers, there are likely more slaves on Earth now than any other time. Last week, you guys didn't like my use of the word heathen. How would you feel if in today's time I called those countries heathens?
I mean, did I personally not like your use of the word heathen?
Well, you said that the guy's statement seemed one-sided, and then Flizzo said, "Well, if you say heathen," so I just connected them.
Oh,
But
okay.
did
I
you
was like,
were
I
okay?
would.
You're okay
I
with
would.
calling them heathen? Okay.
Yeah.
So what's a heathen exactly?
Not Christian.
Barely even human. Savages.
Ex-
Savages.
You know,
Well,
so
if you
I
go
was-
by the savages term, then I would say no. No, but if you say just not Christian, then I agree.
so you wouldn't be okay calling them savages. Interesting.
No.
But
I think savages,
even if
like,
if
to
they say
label
they have
an
slaves,
entire-
they're savages to label
no, I'm
an
saying
entire
to
country.
label an entire society as savages is a bit extreme.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I could label any entire, like, modern society as savages.
I mean, but even if they're evil to the core,
Hmm.
But who's evil to the core is, I guess, my question.
The entire nation.
I get. I mean, it's really from
So-
perspective.
All right, let's
Yeah.
do one nation. What nation are we talking about?
China. What, a couple billion people, or maybe just one?
Right.
They're all
there's
evil to the core?
There's like there can't be 2 billion evil people just lingering about and nothing happens.
Yeah, but that's representation. So like if a boat of one race comes over and the 1,000 people that are currently there meet that boat full of people and they're all mistreating them, they're gonna consider them all bad.
Yeah, but the chances
Mhm.
are that if you meet 1,000 people from one place, they're never gonna all be the same. Like you know 1,000 people from where you're from, right? Or
doubt
close to it.
Like I
But
doubt I know
how
that
many
many
different-
people in my life.
I'd say even if you
How-
get to know two people, you know they're not the same. Like if you actually get to know, or even
Well,
if you
but
ride on a train with two people, like you know that people are
I'd
different.
argue that the more people you involve, the muckier it becomes, and it becomes more one entity. Whereas, like, if you have fewer people, they're all individuals. It's kind of like the forest for the trees sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you
Right,
put them all together, they become one thing.
but that would be in their core values, not in their like
Yeah, they'd
being
be evil to the
savages.
core.
So
Savages,
what I
barely
wanted to
even human.
say on the flip side of this denigrating people with such words, that when you call someone bad, you're viewing them as less than. And we can say it's less than a lot of things, less than me, less than human, less than our country. But that then is used as justification for treating people as less than. And that it's a slippery slope that when you start. So you say, well,
Right, because then you're like, hey, let's round all of them up and put them over there.
because they're barely even human.
Exactly. So that's why you can't just label an entire
So
society.
our laws don't apply to them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you other people like that, then it's a beyond slippery slope to doing atrocities of your own. Because that's how every atrocity starts. It's like those are the other
Well, yeah.
people. We can do whatever we want because our rules don't apply to them, and they're all XYZ. So let's do crazy experiments on them. And
Rather than pass judgment, I would say it is beneficial to put ourselves in the shoes of these people and understand how it happened. Because if we don't understand that, we're susceptible to it happening to us. And last week I said the Bible can be used for or against, and same with history or culture, that it could be used the same way. We should use these things to build ourselves up and not to put others down.
I always make the example of look how America's viewed globally. Like you go over to somewhere in the Middle East and in a little village and you ask them how are Americans, and they could say they're all evil, they're all savages, because what they know is there's a drone flying by and it just drops a little missile and just blows people up every now and then. But those are that's what they know of America, which is like none of us really deal with that, or most people don't deal with that. So how could you say that's what the people are? So you have to look at them individually. Like China, for example, I've met a lot of people from China. I would say most of them are very good people, and that I wouldn't label as any of the words you used. So,
No, we were just pretending.
But I would say you can label a regime like a government government that way. I'd feel comfortable labeling a government evil or
I think you could say the Mongols were savage in terms of like there was a lot of unlife or be unlifed. And that's just how it was. And there was no, like the guy that got the spear through him, he showed weakness, and we are not about that. And it's like, okay, that's their culture, and it works for them.
Yeah, but I mean, that same thing works for lions.
Yeah.
And they're a savage beast. So
are they though?
Oh, well,
I mean, like,
lions,
it's just animalistic.
got it going on.
They have prides.
Yeah. Well, pride's a deadly sin.
Just because they're called that doesn't make it less savage.
So moving on to math, and we don't have 24 again. I'm sorry. We'll have it soon. But the point of 24 is so that we stay sharp, so that we can handle things like the physics that we did last week. And we'll return to physics in the future for refraction of light in a pool of water, because we're not stopping at 5th grade math. Instead of 24 this week, we'll be discussing a number range. We don't know how stem cells are extracted, but if we assume it must come from a young human, what age range would you guys feel comfortable harvesting children? So I'll give a wide range, and you can narrow it as you feel fit. Conception,
I feel like
5
the
years old.
second half of that sentence, though, made it so much worse.
So
What do you mean?
The
Just
title,
words?
Harvesting Children.
Yeah, harvesting them for their organs or their cells, or for medical equipment, I guess.
I mean,
I'm almost like 100% certain that's not how they get stem cells.
What do you
Putting that on
mean?
the record.
Wait, we said we don't know how they get them, but they have to come from young humans.
Do they?
Uh,
I thought they'd come from like placenta or like birth.
well, yeah.
stem
cord or
cells can be
something.
I mean, I guess
harvested
I'm
from
still
blood,
saying-
bone marrow, or cord blood.
There's a bunch of different
Yeah.
ones. So yeah, placenta. And, a popular one is the foreskin of the babies, but there's some that the most powerful stem cells come from ages 5 to 7 days in the womb. So that's what I wonder. Like, you could be farming these things. I guess we
Right.
don't want to call them human at that point, and then you got to harvest
but
your
then
stem cells at day
so
5.
those would be embryonic stem cells from donated cord blood or embryos developing during the vitro fertilization. So apparently there are different levels of stem cells.
Yeah.
So you can get
Yeah.
stem cells from adults as well.
Yeah.
But I guess the younger stem cells are on
Well, they're more
like
powerful. They can become
underdeveloped, so
anything.
they can become different
As
things.
my wife said, if you want to create a new liver, that's what you got to do. Harvest some children.
Children?
Yep.
So what do you think about cloning in that aspect? So if you got a few cells and you're like, all right, we can clone these and just use them as stem cells, but they are clones.
Mm-hmm.
But they never become anything more than that. They're just
Well, I don't know how much I
cells.
believe that cloning exists, but I don't fully know the story because I know they've done like sheep and stuff, but then they end up dying.
Even if it didn't exist, we got into this conversation the other day about Star Wars, and my argument, I stand by the fact that clones aren't people.
Okay.
The Star Wars clones or like clones in general?
Well, I mean, I guess in both, because like if you clone one person 1,000
Can you
times,
clone a soul?
Yeah, like it's not the same person. It's just an entity at that point.
An empty shell.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't.
Well,
I mean,
hey, we're
yes,
just
they could
ghosts
have
in a
like
shell.
characteristics, but like I don't feel like a clone's a person. Which I mean might be controversial, but as Chris was saying, I don't think we really have cloning technology yet, so I think I'm okay.
On controversial, our last topic, and I know we're over 30 minutes, so maybe we'll finish this next time. What do you guys think on Israel-Palestine?
I think it's very complex.
All right.
I just stay out of it.
That's our episode for the week. I can offer the other cheek or walk with you miles twain, but if a person is determined on self-destruction, only God can save them. Make sure to check out Alex on all social media under CU3Scott, my website, Drawing My Life Away. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a nice day. Goodbye.
Adios.
Deuces.